On this edition of Good Day DePaul, a DePaul student's visa has been revoked by the Trump administration.
Universities across the country are being targeted by the administration.
And Chicagoans hold a mass gathering in the Loop to protest the policies of President Trump. I'm Tori Trevino.
And I'm Riley Moulton. And this is Good Day DePaul.
The Trump administration's crackdown on immigrant students has now reached DePaul. The administration has revoked the visa of a DePaul student. Good Day DePaul's Aaron Gessert has details.
A DePaul student had his F1 student visa revoked on April 8th. Vishnu Nali, a graduate student expected to graduate in June, is now suing the Trump administration in an effort to get his visa back. A complaint was filed April 11th against the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Last year, Nali was arrested for shoplifting, but the charges were later dropped. According to the complaint, getting arrested is not a basis to terminate the F1 student status of a student. Meanwhile, thousands of other international students across the U.S. are at risk of deportation. The Trump administration has revoked student visas at universities like Harvard, Columbia, Tufts, and the University of California. As of April 10th, nearly 300 students had lost their visas. In other parts of Illinois, students at Northwestern, the University of Chicago, the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and Southern Illinois University Edwardsville had their visas revoked with no explanation or notice. Last month, Secretary of State Marco Rubio directed diplomats to look through the social media postings of visa applicants for anyone criticizing the U.S. or Israel. But many feel peaceful protests are a valued part of our democracy, and that the government's crackdown is unfair and illegal.
So to equate anti-genocide and pro-Palestine, Palestinian rights, to equate that with disruption or anti-Semitism is the argument that's being used, and that it's unsafe.
Hannah Ayesh is the president of Students for Justice in Palestine at DePaul. She says two members of that group, who are international students, stepped down from the group out of fear.
Being an activist is it's something that a lot of people have a lot of passion for, and the fact that they can't fight for what they believe is right and fight for justice due to their legal status is it's pretty sad.
Many of the students whose visas were revoked participated in encampments last spring and expressed pro-Palestinian beliefs.
Free, free, free Palestine!
Chris Bury, a DePaul journalism professor, says the fear of losing their visas and possibly being deported can make students afraid to speak openly and freely.
It's left with students coming to the United States who must now be just fearful of expressing any kind of political opinion. And that's sad, because one of the great reasons to come to the United States is to live in a country for a while that has freedom of expression.
Layla Farah, faculty advisor to Students for Justice in Palestine at DePaul, says she's warning international students not to participate in any form of activism.
I'm telling them not to come, not to go to protest, not to sign petitions, not to do these things, and to be careful of what they're posting on social media, because they're doxing people because of that.
During DePaul's encampment last spring, Simran Baines, a student who participated, worried about possible deportations even back then.
Maybe at the time it seemed a little exaggerated, and I'd hoped that I was, being overdramatic and exaggerating, but it ended up being a very legitimate fear, as we can see now.
While Baines is not an international student, she worries for those who are.
From what I've heard and what I can imagine, it must feel like you're walking a tightrope, and someone really wants to push you off, but you don't know when and how they're going to do that.
Last year, the U.S. issued more than 400,000 student visas, and more than 2,000 international students on visas were enrolled at DePaul. Meanwhile, two DePaul faculty members who are part of global engagement at the university issued this statement. At DePaul, we welcome and support all students. International students are an integral part of our diverse DePaul community. We understand the toll that this uncertainty can have on members of our community. We encourage students to reach out if they're in need of support. The statement went on to say, quote, "We recommended that international students carry copies of their immigration documents at all times, carefully consider any international travel, and review their rights if they're approached by immigration and customs enforcement." Others are calling for people at DePaul to unify.
I would really like to see the DePaul community come together over this. I think the least of us, the most marginal of us, need those of us who are protected to really stand up.
Amid the fear and uncertainty for international students, Ayesh feels these threats highlight the power of student activism.
You're not going to go through all these lengths to illegally detain students who are active or participating in activism on their campus if you're not afraid of the power that they hold on their own campus.
For Good Day DePaul, I'm Erin Gessert.
The Trump administration continues to cut funding for colleges across the country. Good Day DePaul's Kirsten Reeford reports that many at DePaul are concerned.
A financial freeze with far-reaching consequences is hitting some American universities. The Trump administration has cut funds for Cornell, Northwestern, Brown, Princeton, Columbia, and the president's alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania. Administration officials say the cutbacks are due, in part, to how the schools handled pro-Palestinian protests and dealt with anti-Semitic rhetoric on campus. The pauses in funding are impacting research that is vital to these universities. In addition, more than 50 universities like Yale and MIT are under a federal investigation for diversity, equity, and inclusion programming and scholarships. So far, DePaul has not been impacted, but going forward, there's still concern about federal loan programs like FAFSA, Pell Grants, and PLUS loans. Many DePaul students rely on these programs to attend the university. Greg Mark, a DePaul law professor who attended Harvard, says students across the country rely on these funds.
What would be death-dealing blows to many universities is the withdrawal of the federally subsidized student loans that are characteristic of virtually everybody now who attends undergraduate and graduate and professional schools all across the country.
DePaul Student Government Vice President Samara Smith says there's a lot of anxiety on campus.
I've definitely feel the anxiety too. I think the only thing that's protecting me is that I'm on my way out.
Smith says SGA members have informed the DePaul administration about students' concerns.
The messaging we've been getting and the feelings that I've been getting from admin is that they're here to protect our students and also protect our opportunities.
In February, DePaul issued a statement about how it's reacting to the Trump administration's policies, saying, quote, "We remained committed to our Catholic Vincentian mission, ensuring that our academic and operational priorities continue as planned while we closely monitor potential policy changes." Some in the DePaul community feel the university needs to react more strongly to the Trump administration threats, while others remain confident about DePaul's approach.
I have enormous confidence in the senior leadership of the university right now.
Others at DePaul say they want the university to protect their interests.
I believe that because we are a Catholic Vincentian University and it is our mission to uphold the dignity of all of the students, I believe DePaul should use that, our Catholic mission, to fight for their students.
I would desire some transparency from the university and from their goals going forward.
And one of the main things that Jesus should represent for a Catholic is someone that was ready to do the right thing, no matter the consequences. Why? Because it was the right thing. The university needs to remember that and understand that doing the right thing is the most valuable when it's the hardest.
Meanwhile, the university is being sued by 2 Jewish students who were attacked on campus last November. The students are accusing the university of not protecting them from a hate crime. On May 7th, DePaul President Robert Manuel will address a congressional committee that is investigating anti-Semitism on college campuses. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Kirsten Reedford.
One major college is now defying the Trump administration's demands. Harvard says it will not comply with those demands. Harvard's president says no government should dictate what private universities can teach, whom they can admit and fire, and which areas of study and inquiry they pursue. The administration responded by freezing $2.2 billion in grants to Harvard.
Here at DePaul, a group of faculty members have come together. They're demanding that the university fight some of President Trump's policies. Good Day DePaul's Francesca Corona has our report.
An open letter to DePaul University leadership is circulating among faculty and students, a letter supported by about 100 professors. The message? DePaul professors, quote, condemn the assault on our communities and higher education institutions brought on by the Trump administration's sweeping executive orders.
I have been really concerned and dismayed about the attacks on academic freedom and free speech and due process in relationship to universities, in particular, attacks on higher education. And we really felt that there wasn't a message coming from DePaul about how our students and our programs were going to be protected.
The letter calls upon the DePaul University administration to be courageous and uphold our Vincentian values by being proactive in ensuring and defending the constitutional and ethical rights and safety of our students, staff, and faculty against the current climate of repression spreading across college campuses in the United States. One of the letter's main concerns is, quote, the surveillance, arrest, and threats of deportation against international and immigrant people generally, and particularly further protected free speech and principled opposition to the genocide in Gaza and support for Palestinian liberation. The letter also says the university's lack of action on these issues thus far puts each of us in danger. It also affects all of our safety and students' learning and living conditions. The letter calls upon the university to protect academic freedom, protect free speech, protect political expression, protect immigrant and international students, staff, and faculty, protect LGBTQIA+ students, staff, and faculty, protect DePaul's curriculum, academic programs, and centers from the current attacks on DEI in higher education that are rooted in a racist, eugenic, sexist, patriarchal, homophobic, transphobic, anti-Muslim, and anti-Palestinian political agenda.
A lot of attacks on students, right, who are, we saw it in the way that the response to the pro-Palestinian protests, which has become such a center of punishment and punitive action by the Trump administration, and by others. Certainly we saw, during the past year at other institutions where police were called, like they were at DePaul, and ways in which students have been punished who've been involved in those activities.
The letter also draws a line between what professors say DePaul should and should not do. It says, quote, do not arrest, sanction, discipline, expel, suspend, fire, or revoke degrees for students, student organizations, faculty, and staff using their protected speech and First Amendment rights. Do not capitulate to threats of or active federal investigations or lawsuits. Do not adopt any definition of anti-Semitism that conflates it with anti-Zionism. Respect the diversity of opinion and action within the Jewish community, including at DePaul, on this matter. Do not use social media surveillance programs to identify individuals in our DePaul community. Do not ban masks or force mask removal on campus. Do not cut programs and services because of ideological differences with the Trump administration, or participate in targeting the populations already under siege due to their gender, sexuality, race, class, disability, status, or religion. Do not punitively weaponize grant funding, awards, graduation, degrees, student status, or employment. Do not participate in anticipatory obedience. It goes on to say, do refuse to provide names or any personal or online information of students, staff, faculty, or administrators who have participated in pro-Palestinian protest on campus and other forms of lawful speech covered in the First Amendment. Do affirm speech on campus that supports Palestinian human rights. Do keep ICE off our campus. Do not invite ICE on campus or cooperate with ICE agents who do not have a signed judicial warrant. Do cut back on campus security officers and refrain from bringing additional security and Chicago police to campus, as their increased presence the past year has already created a climate of fear and repression for many and does not keep us safer. do foster an environment that welcomes the voices and perspectives of non-citizens and U.S. citizens alike.
Yeah, and I think that's really powerful because DePaul has had a whole history of support for, underrepresented students, immigrant students, international students, queer and trans students, Jewish students. Like, it has a whole history of people of color students. Like, DePaul has a history and tradition of accessibility and openness, and so it claims that often, right? And really acknowledging and honoring the, like, to quote the mission, the God-given dignity of all people. And so we feel like that's not being followed, right, by the government right now, where, students are being abducted, they're being criminalized, they're being disappeared.
Faculty leaders are urging the administration to reconnect with the university's founding principles, to care for the most vulnerable, and to foster a campus culture rooted in solidarity and respect.
We say it in a very compelling way in that paragraph. Why does DePaul need to stand up? I think that's really compelling. While we understand the impulse to duck and cover, we serve a higher mission than mere survival of the fittest or the luckiest, right? Remaining silent will not save our university from threats.
As professors speak out, they say the pressure is now on university leadership to choose whether to protect its community or compromise the mission it was built on. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Francesca Corona.
Thousands of protesters gathered at Daley Plaza in Chicago on April 5th. It was the largest protest in Chicago since President Trump took office in January. Good Day DePaul's Bing Wong was there.
Hands up! Hands up! Hands
up! Thousands of protesters gathered in Daley Plaza in downtown Chicago, the biggest anti-Trump rally here since he took office in January. It was part of protests nationwide that day. Organizers say more than 1 million people turned out in about 100 cities in the United States.
I'm doing the symbolic protest against the first outrageous act of the presidency, renaming the Gulf of Mexico. If he can do that, he can, without any right, he can do anything.
I'm 82 and I don't want to live out the rest of my life under this kind of government.
The protest started with speeches at Daley Plaza. The demonstrators then marched around the city, holding signs and chanting slogans. Some think Elon Musk, senior advisor to the president and the world's richest person, has too much influence in the American government.
Many people disagree with Donald Trump's policies, and that includes cutting DEI programs, mass layoffs, and even causing the biggest stock market drop since the pandemic in 2020. Protesters are hoping that the president will keep his hands off the government.
Hugo Paley, an organizer of the rally, says he's never participated in a protest before, but felt it was necessary to speak out.
I'm 66 years old and this is my first protest march ever. I am tired of the lies that this administration puts forth. I am tired of the intimidation and the things that he's been doing that's going to cost his own people just as much as other countries.
Organized by a coalition of civil rights groups, the protest began as a grassroots response to recent legislation and executive orders by the new administration. It quickly grew into a national movement. Since the president took office for the second time, he's reduced protections for minorities, begun withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement, and antagonized many U.S. allies, including Ukraine, Mexico, Canada, and most of the European countries. Protesters are hoping this rally will put pressure on the White House and lead to changes in the Republican Party.
I hope this grassroots movement, which is happening in all the cities now, is really going to help. I think there is going to be a backlash against the Republican Party because they have not stood up to him. And I don't think they are going to win anything in the midterms coming in 2026.
Organizers say this is not a one-day event, but part of a long-term campaign to check Donald Trump's power. More protests, voter drives, and legislative pushes are already being planned in the weeks ahead. Reporting for Good Day DePaul, I'm Bing Wong.
Next on Good Day DePaul, fires at Heathrow Airport in London disrupt the spring break trips of some DePaul students.
And DePaul has a new women's basketball coach. Those stories and more coming up on Good Day DePaul.
I think we should split up. Why? I want to meet new people who need me. Meet new people? You're my left kidney. You only need one of me, man, and you have two. There are plenty of people out there who are dying because they don't have one. Really? You'll be giving the gift of life. I could be a hero. Yeah, it's all win-win up here, buddy. Why don't you go and save a life, pal? You're doing the right thing.
A DePaul study abroad group flying to London had to turn back in mid-air and return to Chicago. As I found out, this was all due to massive fires at Heathrow Airport.
A massive electrical fire at London Heathrow Airport last month affected 44 DePaul students studying abroad over spring break. Two programs, developing a business plan in London and the business of international sports in London, lost 4 days of their trip due to the shutdown of Heathrow on March 21st. One of the DePaul flights, the one carrying the international sports program students, was already in the air when the fire hit. It could not land at Heathrow or nearby airports in England due to the heavy flight traffic. This meant their plane had to turn around in mid-flight and return to Chicago.
I actually saw us U-turn before that actually they said anything. So I'm looking at my phone and I'm texting my dad being oh, I think I'm going home.
Students found themselves taking an 8-hour flight back to Chicago and landing at O'Hare at 1 a.m. DePaul student Kelly Krozik was in the air with the sports business program when the news broke.
The pilot comes on the overhead and is very slowly says this in the overhead speaker. He's so there's been a problem. There's been an electrical fire. Takes a beat and then is so there's no power in the London airport. So we're all we thought we were about to crash above Canada right now. But he was yeah, we have to turn around and go back to O'Hare. And we're all what is going on?
Meanwhile, the flight that was supposed to carry students from the International Business Program was waiting to take off from Chicago when they heard about the fires. The flight was soon canceled. DePaul student Danielle Lee shared her experience.
When they first told me, it didn't really hit me because of the medication. But then the next day I woke up and I realized I'm probably not going to be going to London anytime soon. And they were even talking about the chances of the trip being canceled.
DePaul's study abroad office got to work immediately to accommodate the 44 students involved. But it took 3 days until Monday before everyone could leave. The students were not charged for the rebooking of the new flights and were reimbursed for activities they missed because of the shortened trip. Student Nicole Cope shared what the new flights entailed.
They were all going to Newark and then they were all getting on the same flight to London, the connecting. But my group it was just 5 of us, I think, 5 or 6. And we were by ourselves the whole time. We never met up with the group. And then there was a few people who had direct flights. So I was really shocked because they were trying to get us all to go together, but we didn't.
What started as a 10-day trip was quickly shortened to 6, motivating students to make the most of their time and prompting professors to work swiftly to rebook site visits, games, and guest speakers. DePaul head of study abroad Marty McGivern describes it as a state of disbelief, to frustration, to mourning, then to lots of questioning what will happen next. She shared what this process was like, thanking Professor Andy Clark for his help in dealing with this situation.
They worked their tails off. They took a full 10-day program and figured out how to put absolutely everything that was possible into a shorter time period, which is basically reorganizing most of it. In our case, Professor Andy Clark, literally refunded tickets, rebooked tickets for major soccer matches, took these really high-level speakers from one day and had them meet us in another location in a different day. Worked so hard and delivered a really quality program to the students. It was really great.
Many students feel that despite the chaos, the canceled flights brought them closer together.
You don't realize how close you're going to get with people until you are forced to hang out all the time, but also go through something as crazy as our flight.
The study abroad office as well as DePaul officials encourage any affected students who still have questions or concerns about the trip to reach out to the study abroad office. For Good Day DePaul, I'm Riley Moulton.
In sports, DePaul has a new women's basketball coach, Jill Pizzotti. Last year, Pizzotti was the interim coach, filling in when Doug Bruno had to leave for health reasons. Last month, Bruno announced that he was stepping down permanently.
In men's basketball, DePaul has received 4 commitments from the transfer portal. They are Caleb Banks, a forward from Tulane, Jeremy Lorenz, a forward from Wofford, Brandon Macklin, a forward from Radford, and RJ Smith, a guard from Colorado. Meanwhile, 5 players from last year's team have entered the portal. Point guard Connor Enright is transferring to Indiana. Guard David Thomas is headed to Richmond, while JJ Traynor, Jacob Meyer, and Chris Riddle are in the portal, but still haven't committed to where they'll play.
In track and field, DePaul's Dustin Hudak finished first in the 800 meters at the South Florida Invitational, while Cash Allen won the women's shot put.
In tennis, the DePaul men's and women's team have finished their regular seasons. The men had an overall record of 13-10, while the women were 10-10.
In softball, DePaul has lost 7 in a row. They're now 1-13 in Big East play and 13-24 overall.
Next on Good Day DePaul, Lollapalooza. This summer's lineup is revealed.
And the DePaul Battle of the Bands. Those stories when we come back.
2004 Skateboard Championship.
High school, moped.
How about you, Slim? Anything?
Something.
Looks like Slim's got a little paper cut.
It's nothing.
Come on, man. No, I'm gonna make you tell me.
Hey, kidney transplant.
When, dude? I didn't know you were sick.
I was donating it.
Someone in your family?
You gave your kidney to a complete stranger?
Yeah, saved his life.
Wow. All right.
Everyone can save a life by being a living organ donor on matchingdonors.com.
Music fans and concert goers have a lot to look forward to. Lollapalooza has revealed its lineup for the summer's big concert at Grant Park. The headliners include Sabrina Carpenter, Tyler the Creator, Korn, and recent Grammy winner Doechii. Tickets are on sale now at the festival's website. The concert will run from July 31st to August 3rd.
And here at DePaul, the annual Battle of the Bands was recently held on the Lincoln Park campus. Duo Kalia Love and Chiquite won the competition and will open as the headlining act at Fest later this spring.
That's all for this week's edition of Good Day DePaul. You can keep up with us by visiting our Vimeo channel at Good Day DePaul or by going to goodday.depaul.edu.
And be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
And if you have any news tips, message us through the Good Day DePaul social media channels.
Thanks for watching. I'm Tori Trevino.
And I'm Riley Moulton. Have a good day, DePaul.